Hi, everyone. So I guess I'll dive right in, right? Everyone can see my screen. That's perfect, right? Okay. Um, I think that my latest coffee obsession is the flat white. I think it is a result of me getting older, a lover of many espresso-based drinks. I find that the flat white makes for a delightful coffee to milk ratio. I write this seated at one of my favorite cafes in Los Angeles as I am watching a handsome waiter walking towards my table, confidently carrying my flat white with one brown sugar, which had been pre stirred by the barista before the foamed milk was added. I love foam, but just a touch. Writing about the confident walk of the waiter, about his walk, about watching his walk and watching him walk, writing about him, about me, about my anticipation for the coffee that he carries. Oh, and remind me to ask him for the Wi-Fi password. Wait, never mind. I'm already logged into the internet here. Anyway, this talk is precisely about that. Perhaps less about waiters and coffee and more about writing, perhaps also about waiters and coffee, but just a touch. There's a photo of Samuel Beckett sitting at a cafe, probably Café Français on Boulevard Saint-Jacques in Paris. It was taken in 1985 by photographer John Minahan. An ashtray is filled with cigarette butts. The window in the back is covered with mouth-watering words like croissant and chocolat and glace. And Beckett is there, seated with a big scarf around his neck and wrinkles on his forehead. It's perfect. But my favorite thing about this photo is that there are two cups of coffee on the table. I choose to speculate that one is Beckett's and the other is the photographer's. But because the photographer that is taking the photo is seated on the seat across from Beckett, it almost feels like we are invited to have coffee with him. And Beckett was probably an ideal partner for coffee in Paris. As the photographer writes on the bottom of the photo, he's apparently tremendously well-read, steeped in European culture. He loves music and painting and has a keen interest in photography. Picture that. Just you and Beckett in Paris over coffee and cigarette smoke, but just a touch. I'd like to think about my writing like that. I use that as a motivation for my mission to resist disembodied scholarly writing. What started as a stylistic concern evolved into an obsession because achieving it is a hard thing to do, for me at least. I have dense, complex, tangled, cross-disciplinary ideas that I want to share with the world about theater and law and justice, and how theater can create an alternative social justice by simulating the judicial process and revealing its innermost mechanisms, and how the legal system fails to deliver justice, and how theater can put the trial on trial. But here's the thing. If I want to share my ideas with the world, if I want my writing to have some sort of impact, it needs to be engaging to humans. Not dumbed down, never. Not watered down, not merely palatable, not easy or pleasant or polite. But my writing must resist being disinterested in how it communicates with the reader. It must resist being disconnected from my own humanity, my personhood, my positionality, and the reader's. It must not reject the reader, but invite the reader in. It needs to take the reader by the hand, showing them the way through my complex thought process, letting them know that they're in good hands, that I know where we are going, and that it is worth us going there. And by the time I ask them to trust me with their precious time and mind and focus, I better know those things, really know where we're going, but also leave room for the readers to make their own way through the text, but just a touch, so that they do not lose their way. I find that writing cafes help me with the task and responsibility of resisting disembodied writing. To me, disembodied writing means that the text lacks a clear authorial voice or identity. Resisting it means maintaining a clear connection to my selfhood as a writer, being transparent about my motivations, and acknowledging and being accountable for my social, cultural, ethical, political agendas. It also means to strive to provide the needed context and background upon which my argument is based, conscientiously cite my sources, detangle neural pathways that might only make sense to me, being mindful of ethics when considering the potential impact of my research on the reader, on society, sitting at a cafe among humans, preferably facing the street, seeing people around me living their lives, hearing them make conversation, eavesdropping as they are talking to their loved ones, humans or dogs for that matter, or gossiping about others, or on a date, or navigating their family dramas. It grounds my writing. Writing can be such a lonely experience. Sometimes entire days go by that I'm not talking to a single soul, but to convey the human voice, I need to hear it. I need to connect to it aloud in order to connect to it on paper. I find that, like in that photo of Beckett, it transforms my writing into a space of connection, of collaboration of the minds, of creative spiritual correspondence, of self-reflective criticism, of political candor, and also, perhaps, a space of catharsis, but, just a touch. It took me a while to find the right cafes for these purposes, and I'm here to help you find yours. Of course, there are the technical stuff, a delicious roast, baristas who don't over-extract or burn the coffee, good options of both savory and sweet treats, moderate pricing, a stable Wi-Fi connection and some outlets for charging one's laptop. It's a plus if they're willing and able to serve wine or a gin and tonic, even, say, before noon, but mostly after. There are also the ethical considerations of ensuring that the cafe upholds a fair trade policy and that it employs fair labor conditions for its workers, all the workers, including the kitchen staff and cleaners. But on top of these, the most critical aspect for me is the atmosphere. It is something that is usually beyond words. You either feel it or you don't. But I will try to describe it in a way that might be beneficial for you in your quest for your cafe. It should feel safe and reliable, a bit of a sanctuary, but not sterile or hermetic. Prickly edges promote better writing. They reconfigure your brain into being creative. But by the way, this is not a medical opinion. It's just the opinion of one unqualified writer. The design of the cafe should not excuse a lack of personality or conceal quirks. The people there should avoid that too. If the waiters are a little weird, that's a good sign. If the clientele is a little weird, sign me up. No presumptuous, ordinary, squared real estate developers / influencers, no offense, who match the pseudo boho chic prints on the wall. The people around you will inform your writing, so sit next to the interesting ones. They might be a little loud, but allow yourself to immerse in that. Allow yourself to write loudly too while trying not to overexert your keyboard. The atmosphere at the cafe should urge you to take your eyes away from the screen on occasion. And when that happens, let your gaze follow that person who just crossed the street. Were they interested in your research? And trust that they are. What would you say to them about the chapter that you are working on? What would they ask? Lastly, as a side note, happy waiters are conducive to better writing. So here's another tip. Tip your waiters. On top of the contribution that they have made for your writing by bringing you the coffee, by not urging you to leave after too many hours and too little orders, by refilling your water, and by sometimes straightforwardly being the subject of your writing, like now, they might be saving towards fulfilling their own dreams, maybe towards applying for a PhD program and sharing their brilliant ideas with the world. Also, talk to your waiters. Ask them how their day is going. a free croissant, albeit a little stale by that point, might follow. Nourish yourself, that's critical. And the cafe should be a place that when you leave, a part of you misses it, but just a touch. All of that is not to say that I only write in cafe. It is unfeasible as a doctoral student. I, in fact, do most of my writing in my home office. But there are two things I do to mitigate that. First, I make sure that any piece of writing I produce receives at least one visit to the cafe as a means of saturating it with this cafe-activity-ness. That's not a real word. Second, if I feel I need to recreate the cafe atmosphere at home, I go on YouTube and open one of the many channels that play cafe ambient sounds, like cozy coffee shops, for example. These tracks mix atmospheric music and light background murmur, and it is brilliant and frankly saved me a lot of money. It is not like the real thing, but maybe just a touch. I am still now at that cafe in Los Angeles, wrapping up writing this talk. The waiter arrives at the table, not with a flat white, but with white wine. And with him, I feel that so has my reader. I take a sip, and then I say to the reader, come, sit, I'm so happy to see you. What will you be having? This one's on me. Thank you.